We have actually, for the first time, I feel like almost all year long, a Thursday night game to be excited about. These Thursday night games, I felt the NFL has pretty much bombed on.
Oh, you didn't like the Jets and Patriots massacre last week?
Jets, Patriots, the week before, I think was Colts, Jaguars. Just...
I think that's the biggest problem with the Thursday games. You have to if you're going to have a standalone game, it has to be a game that can hold its own weight. It's got to be two meaningful teams playing a game that people are going to watch. Colts and Jaguars, they're going to keep doing that. There's no point to a Thursday night game.
And that's what I mean. And me and Erich have talked about this before, is the fact that these Thursday night games have been very disappointing for the most part. I know some of them turned into actually good games. You know what I mean? And I know that. But the simple fact of the matter is, going into it is just not exciting. There's no real anything to it.
It's Colts and Jaguars. People barely want to watch that on a Sunday.
This week, tonight, you have the 10-1 Falcons hosting the 5-6 Saints. The Saints are the only team to beat Atlanta this year so far. They did have a disappointing loss last week against San Francisco, but they still look like one of the hottest teams over the past month or so of the season. This game, to me, is a determining fact. If the Saints lose this game, I believe their playoff hopes are lost. If they win, they're right back in the conversation. Do we think that's a fair statement to make?
Absolutely.
Erich, what do you think? If the Saints lose, are their playoff hopes done for this year? If they win, are they still alive?
Pretty much done. If they win, they're still alive.
And a lot of that's due on what happens Sunday, but...
The NFC East the NFC in general is just 100 times more competitive than the AFC this year. I mean, you look, and a 9-7 record may get you the playoffs in the AFC. In the NFC, there's going to be about 7 or 8 teams possibly with a 9-7 record, and they're not coming out of the NFC East. I'll just say it that way. But if they lose tonight, 4-7, basically having to run the table the rest of the year, they're going to be in a precarious situation towards the end of the year. So, absolutely, if they lose tonight, they're probably done.
And I think that's what they're playing for. I think if you're Atlanta, you're trying to sort of exercise some demons almost. I mean, this team is literally has lost 4 straight to New Orleans, 11 out of the last 13. The last 3 games they've played in Atlanta, but all 3 of those games have been decided by 3 points. Everything about this is just... If I'm Atlanta, I need to beat them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, if everyone... Atlanta's basically thought of as the overrated team in the league right now. They're the overachievers. I don't think anybody's really giving them the benefit of the doubt that they can make a long postseason run this year. Everyone just kind of assumes the air is going to go out of the balloon at one point. And a good first step to proving people wrong in that is beating a team that, like you said, has manhandled them basically the way they have over the last few years. This is their first step to proving people wrong.
It is. And the simple fact of the matter is, I think that this is going to be just like every other game these two teams have pretty much played against each other over the past few years. It's going to be close. It's going to be tight. It's going to come down to final possessions. The one thing I do know is that New Orleans' defense is atrocious. Atlanta's running game seems to be pretty atrocious as well right now. They're not running the ball very well. Mm-hmm. Jacquizz Rodgers had a nice day for them on Sunday. Michael Turner, I think he's reached the tail end of that impressive little run he had down in Atlanta after he was able to stop being LaDainian Tomlinson's backup. Mm-hmm. So I think that this is a situation where Turner needs to step up his game. The Saints there's a lot of things that I'm looking for in this game. That's for sure.
Well, the one thing I'd say, actually, you're jumping a little ahead because we're actually touching on the running back I was going to start this week, and I said start him. Turner had a great run when he came over originally after being LT's backup, like you said. But he is 30 years old now, and he did have a couple years where he hit the 370 carry mark.
Yes.
Which, as I'm sure you guys know, that's kind of been thought of as the kiss of death, basically. I mean, I've seen the statistics of the number of running backs who next season after that, they have such a decline because of the wear and tear it takes on their bodies, and Turner's gone through that. And I think the Falcons are at the point right now, they have to feed Jaquez Rodgers the ball. They have to figure out a way to get him the ball.
I'm actually going to start him tonight. I'm out of my fantasy league. I have no shot for the
Well, I'll
playoffs.
tell
So
you-
I drafted the guy, never dropped him. He's getting his start this year.
Yeah, no, if you're in a keeper league, that's a great guy to hang on to for next year, because I think he winds up getting more carries over the years if they don't bring anybody else in. I think he's the guy who takes over the every down carries at some point. And it's funny, in my money league, actually, I have him, but I also have Ray Rice, Trent Richardson, and Doug Martin. So I can't start him. But, the fact is, I think the key for the Atlanta to get that running game going is Turner's carries need to be reduced, Rodgers' carries needs to go up, and you can feature Rodgers in the passing game. He's a good receiver. At 5'6", you want to be careful not to stereotype him like the Dexter McClusters, and you do have to wonder if his body's going to hold up. But the way this guy has performed over the last few weeks, and the fact that they are giving him more reps than Michael Turner, you have to go with this guy. You have to ride the hot hand.
I think Rodgers, he gives you a little speed out of the backfield that Turner didn't really give you. He obviously doesn't have the between the tackle brutal power that a Michael Turner has.
Turner's the bowling ball, and Rodgers is the spark plug. You have to ride the spark plug right now.
There you go. Now, Erich, my friend, what are you looking for? Are you looking forward to this game, first of all?
It's the best Thursday night game they've had on yet, in my opinion. That's what I'm looking for. I mean, Atlanta's home, so you want to see again, can they keep just rolling at home under Matt Ryan?
Yeah, what's he got, 4 losses in his career or something
Yeah,
like
he's
that
like
at home?
23
Yeah, something like
That's
that,
just
yeah.
stupid.
So, I mean, also, New Orleans already did beat them. Their one loss this year came against New Orleans.
Yep.
So, see, can New Orleans do it again? Because obviously they did it the first time. They did it with a big game from Jimmy Graham. See how Jimmy Graham does this game. Again, see how see how New Orleans reacts to bouncing off of that loss.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you a question, Erich. The Saints right now are scoring exactly 28 points a game. They're giving up exactly 27.6 points a game, which means on average they're outscoring their opponents by 0.4. Now, obviously, we realize that's not realistic in a game itself. So what I want to ask you is this: are the Saints more likely to score 28 or more likely to give up 28? Now, I understand that they could do both in this game, but I just want to hear what you think is more likely to have happen in tonight's game. Do the Saints give up 28 or score 28? What's more likely?
The Saints are more likely to score 28 than to give up 28.
Okay. I was hoping you were going to go in that direction, because to me, the Saints defense is the determining factor in who wins and loses this game. More than any other individual player, any other side of the ball, I don't care. The Saints defense, to me, determines who wins this game. And I say that because if this defense stops people and they get turnovers, and AKA what they did to the Eagles the one night, then this is one of the best teams in the NFL, no questions about it. If this defense gets picked apart and looks average, well, then they lose the games. And you saw that when they started 0-4 and let Kansas City look like arguably one of the most exciting offenses in the NFL. So to me, that's their determining factor. Who has the biggest game tonight? Do you see more out of, let's pick a Saints running back. We'll go with Sproles, just because Sproles has come back. Sproles and Rodgers, Jaquez Rodgers. Two guys seem very similar. I think Sproles is better at doing what he does than Jaquez Rodgers is. Who do you think has the better game?
Sproles.
Mike?
I'm going to go with Rodgers, actually.
Yeah?
Even though, listen, I think Sproles may wind up having his best game since he came back from injury. Problem is, you got 4 of them with the Saints, and they can use any of them at any given moment, and they're all pretty decent. I mean, Chris Ivory didn't play the first 8 weeks of the season. Then he comes on, gets 50 yards and a touchdown. So I'm going to go with Rodgers on that. But, it's only because the Saints are so cluttered at running back. And if the game's a shootout, nobody's using the backfield on either team.
Yeah, this is true. They are definitely pass heavy, and I think that's one of the things that kills Atlanta more than anything, is that they have to put so much up or so much on Matt Ryan's shoulders.
It never hurts when you have guys like Roddy White, Julio Jones, and Tony Gonzalez to throw to, though.
See, you know what's funny though? When you look at their season, the biggest games for Julio Jones all on the road. The biggest games for Roddy White are all at home. So expect Roddy White tonight to have the big game because Julio Jones did it last week on the road, and on top of that, they seem to pretty much alternate week in and week out who has the good game and who takes a back seat, and then Tony G just is your constant in the passing game. I want to say, though, I'm very happy that we finally have a Thursday game that's worth watching.
Only took him 12 weeks.
I mean, jeez.